Hey everyone, Alex here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you 5 tips on how to save money while teaching English abroad, because it's a great opportunity to save money, and I was lucky enough to manage to save up to $10,000 in a year teaching English in Korea. I've managed to live as cheaply as $500 per month in Vietnam, and it's such a great way to save money, but I see a lot of people wasting that opportunity and not saving as much as they could. So here are my tips on exactly how to save as much as you possibly can while you're out here teaching. It's been bothering me a little bit because the whole idea of teaching English in Korea is here in Seoul, Korea. In Thailand, I'm out here in beautiful Hanoi, Vietnam. Okay, tip number 1 is eat local. So this one is really simple but effective because local food is very cheap compared to buying the Western alternatives. So for example, going out to eat a meal here in Vietnam is like $2 for a bowl of pho, or a banh mi is like less than $1, which is the Vietnamese roll, baguette roll. It's delicious. So there are some meals obviously that are more expensive than that, but if you eat that kind of stuff, it's way cheaper than if you go out to a Western restaurant and order a burger or pizza. Then you can pay up to like $10 or more for that, because it's just, you know, it's not as common and they charge more for it here. Then tip number 2 is to cook for yourself. So I realize I'm going through all the food options right now, but this also has helped me personally save a lot of money, because while it is cheap to eat out in a country like Vietnam, for example, if you're teaching in Korea, eating out is actually fairly expensive when you go to nice places. Although it is cheap to eat out in general, if you're doing it a lot, it actually adds up. So if you cook for yourself and buy all your ingredients, especially at local markets, so they have those in South Korea, here in Vietnam, in Thailand. So there's definitely lots of options where you can get stuff really cheaply and then cook yourself. And I like to eat healthily. I generally cook very simply, like lots of vegetables, chicken to meat, rice. But if you do that, it's like extremely cheap to live in Asia. So I highly recommend doing that at least a good percentage of the time. You know, if you're always eating out, it's gonna add up a lot more than if you kind of cook some meals at home, have breakfast at home, that kind of stuff. Tip number 3, cut out the drinking. So if you are a drinker, if you drink alcohol, if you like to go out and party, or if you just like to chill out with some friends and have a couple of glasses of wine, well, that is actually one of the biggest expenses for people out in Asia, because maybe in South Korea, for example, there's a big drinking culture among Koreans, so a lot of the social stuff, you're expected to drink. You don't have to, of course, but it's part of the culture. So, you can be drinking and then maybe you order some food with that and you drink more, and it really does add up. As well as that, especially out here in a lot of the countries I've been to, I've seen there's quite a big drinking culture among the English teachers, which, like whatever, if you want to spend some time in your free time having some drinks and stuff. But the thing is, it really adds up. And while everyone gets here and is like, wow, it's only like $1 or $2 for a drink, when you start to drink fair amounts, it's one of the biggest expenses I've seen people having here. To the point where, like, I've seen people who don't drink at all and people who do, and somehow that person on the non-drinking side seems to save a lot more money. And personally, I don't drink that much because I like to stay healthy as much as possible. So, I'll go out and have a couple of beers maybe, but when the binge drinking kicks in, I've seen people spend a lot of money, and I've done it myself on occasion. So that's a big one, and really you can save so much more money if you just cut that down. If you don't drink, well, that's good, then you won't spend as much money. Okay, so tip number 4 then is to track your daily spending. Now, this is kind of getting a little bit more hardcore. I know a lot of people just couldn't be bothered, and that was me for most of my time, you know, since I've been making money in my adult life. And in South Korea, I didn't do it, and I know I could have saved a lot more if I had, because right now I have an app, a very useful one called CoinKeeper. You can check it out on Android and maybe on iPhone. And this app's really simple. You just kind of like drag and drop from where you use the money into different categories, and you just fill in the amount quickly. So it's not too much of a hassle. But what it does do is it makes you very aware of what you're spending. And being aware of what you're spending is really useful, especially out in Asia, because a lot of things are so cheap out here. And you know, you're spending money like, oh yeah, it's like no big deal, everything's very cheap. However, then you can get into the mindset of actually overspending, where you know, you start to realize that you've spent money on things that you could have saved a lot on. For example, like going out and eating, you know, at restaurants, and maybe you go to Western restaurants, like I mentioned, are more expensive, and you're doing that more and more often, and then you realize you're not saving as much, but you don't have any record of like where that money went. So the nice thing is, after a month you can kind of look back and see where you'd want to cut back and stuff like that. So if you are like willing to go ahead and spend a few minutes every day to like track what you spent, I found it really useful. And especially because like if you're just thinking in dollars or South African rands or Australian dollars, like wherever you're from, and then when you're converting, sometimes things seem very cheap when not necessarily. Like you could be spending money on things that locals would pay like 1/10 of the price on, but you don't even think about it because you're like, oh, it's only a few dollars. But actually then it adds up, and being aware of it really helps. Okay, and then the last tip, and again, these sound a little obvious, but they make a big difference. And this one is plan to save. Because being out here in Asia, you have a great salary, low living costs, but what I see happen all the time is people don't take advantage of this. They don't actually plan to save money, and then, you know, like maybe they'll put away a little bit each month, but not nearly as much as they could have if they just like set aside a chunk of cash every month that they're going to put aside no matter what. And then, you know, if it comes down to it, maybe like at the end of the month you don't like buy as much fancy stuff, like, or something like that, you know. But once you put the money aside, then it's there, you can hold on to it. And again, this is like a big thing, because I've seen a lot of people live very cheaply out here, and people actually spend a lot of money, so they don't save as much. And it's kind of a mindset thing. I think the people who I've seen save are the ones that really plan ahead and think about what they are putting aside, think about what they're spending their money on. And then I've seen people come away, like I said, with, you know, for me, I did fairly well in South Korea. Even like bought a bunch of stuff like this camera, and I had a surgery on my ankle that cost a few $1,000s. Not a fun experience, but I still managed to save a lot of money. But some people didn't save that much, and I was like, you know, I was kind of shocked. So it's a lot goes into the planning and the mindset behind it. So, yep, that's my fifth tip, and I hope you find these useful. If you are planning to come abroad and teach English, it is a great way to save money. It's a great way to have an awesome adventure while you're still young. You know, go out and try something different, save a bit of money, have a good time. So that's it from me today. Make sure to check out ninjateacher.com, which is my job website that has teaching English jobs, and we help you find something in China, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam. So go have a look at that and apply if you're interested in teaching. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos about living abroad in Asia, teaching English. So subscribe and thumbs up this video, and I'll speak to you very soon. Cheers.